Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to Sheffield Chamber's latest edition of our COVID-19 Business Support webinars. I'm Sam Christmas, Commercial Partnerships Manager at Sheffield Chamber of Commerce. I just want to start by reminding everybody that this webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Chamber's YouTube channel shortly. If you haven't already done so, please mute your microphones. This should alleviate any interference and background noise. If you experience any problems with internet speed, then try turning off your webcam. Those of you that have got them on, see most people have got them off, but that does sometimes help. Some of you may be aware that Zoom has reported some recent hacking activity. A new phenomenon called Zoom bombing has occurred during some meetings and webinars. To mitigate the risk of this happening, the meeting will be locked shortly after we begin. If we do experience any Zoom bombing, the webinar will be terminated immediately and a new meeting invite sent to you later on. So on to today's webinar. Following on from the coronavirus job retention scheme, the government announced it's to provide some support to self-employed workers throughout the current COVID-19 situation. The support package announced was the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme. On the 26th of March, the Chancellor announced that the self-employed individuals may be able to apply for a taxable grant to support them if their business profits have suffered as a result of COVID-19. I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Stephen Strother, Head of Tax Compliance at Shorts Chartered Accountants. Stephen leads the tax compliance team at Shorts and has worked in the tax profession for over 18 years. Stephen specialises in personal tax and he provides effective tax solutions for his clients, ensuring they achieve their personal objectives. Stephen is also part of the team at Shorts who are leading on the COVID-19 support measures announced by government. Stephen, you're very welcome. So before handing over to Stephen, I just want to remind participants that questions can be submitted via the chat box, and I'll aim to get through as many as we can. However, we will aim to finish on time, approximately 9:45. I will share Stephen's contact email address following the webinar. If anyone has any outstanding questions, they can contact Stephen directly. So, without further ado, to tell us about the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Stephen Strother. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks, Sam. Morning, everybody. I'm just going to go straight in there and give you an overview of the scheme. So the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, what is it? There's been a number of support measures announced by the government, and as Sam said, on the 26th of March, the Chancellor announced a specific scheme designed for self-employed individuals. So to be clear, this is targeted at unincorporated businesses, that's sole traders or members of partnerships. For those that are eligible, the government will pay a grant to support them if the business profits have suffered as a result of COVID-19. So to be clear, it's not a loan, it's not something that you'd have to pay back. It is a government grant, and they will calculate the grant based on the average monthly trading profits of your business. And this would be calculated based on the tax years 2016-17, 2017-18, and 2018-19, and an average of those, a monthly average calculated across those tax years. Now, the grant will be paid up to 80% of your monthly trading profits. That will be capped at £2,500 per month. So who would be eligible for the scheme? So as I said previously, you must be self-employed or a member of a partnership. And this, you would have had to have been self-employed during the tax year 6th of April 18 to 5th of April 2019. So the 2018-19 tax year. Your business must have been trading during that period, and you must have filed the tax return for that year. Your business must have continued to trade during the 2019-20 tax year, or would still be trading if it wasn't for the COVID-19 and the measures introduced by the government. And then your intention is to continue trading as well as soon as you're able to do so. The next criteria is based on the level of trading profits. Now, this is not for all businesses. It only covers trading profits that are less than 50k during the tax year ended 5th of April 19, or an average of those 3 tax years, 16, 17, 17, 18, and 18, 19. And as well as that, over 50% of your total income must come from self-employed sources. This doesn't cover the micro businesses that people have just to top up their PAYE income. This is for where your main source of income is from self-employed sources. You have to meet all of those criteria to be eligible for the scheme. How and when can you access the scheme? So HMRC are currently working on the system. It will be, because it's based on self-assessment tax returns, it will take more time to put the system together. They're anticipating the first payments to be paid in June. There will be, HMRC will contact those who they think are eligible based on the criteria and accessing information in the tax returns, and there will be an online application to be made. And this initially will cover a 3-month period for March, April, and May, and it will potentially be extended if applicable, if required. So that's the general overview and eligibility, and I think we could fire over some questions and answers if Sam's got some ready.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Just want to remind all participants that any questions you've got for Stephen, please do post in the questions box on the right-hand side. I'll kick us off. We've been getting quite a few questions over the last couple of weeks, Stephen, about company directors that receive either a salary or the salary purely through dividends. Can directors apply for this income support scheme?
So, in short, the answer is no. This scheme is not targeted at salary directors of limited companies. It's for unincorporated businesses, so they would not be eligible for this scheme. However, there are other measures available. If they're paid a salary through pay-as-you-earn, they may be eligible for the job retention scheme and furloughed workers. But no, this is for unincorporated sole traders or members of a partnership, not for the limited company directors with salary and dividends.
And you just mentioned the tax years. What if you haven't filled in tax for 2018-19 yet? Does it go on 17-18? Did you say? So
the starting point is the 2018-19 tax return. You must have filed that tax return, and the government allowed a period of grace for you to get up to date. If you haven't filed that tax return, you need to do so as soon as possible, and we've got to the 23rd of April to get that submitted in order to be eligible for the scheme. The government have got to cut off somewhere, and they've used that tax year. So if you haven't, get in touch with your accountant or your tax advisor, get your books and records in as soon as possible to get your tax return filed. But then it would get, then they would, sorry, Sam.
No, carry on, Stephen.
Yes. So that is the starting point. Your business has to be trading during that tax year and the tax return filed. But to work out the average, they will be looking back at the previous 2 years to that as well. So over a 3-year period, if those tax years are relevant, if your business started trading years before that or during that period, it would only be the actual applicable tax years.
Can you apply for this yourself, Stephen, or would you get your accountants to do it for you?
Well, it's a good question. We've had a lot of clients who have
Here's a chance to have a plug now.
who have been contacting us to, one, just to check their eligibility and give them an estimate of what they may get, because to just aid their cash flow. But the plan is for HMRC to contact individuals who are eligible with an online application. As this is being created now, we don't know what the online application process is going to be like. So yes, there will be many individuals who will just apply themselves, but you can, call upon your accountants and tax advisors to help you with that process.
Great. First question's coming, Stephen, from Gillian. If you have only traded for part of the 3 years, do you calculate the average on the number of months that you have traded for up to the 5th of April 19, taking into account the first year of trading may be a part year?
Yep, it's a good question, and one that I've seen a couple of times already. So the average monthly is being calculated on the number of tax years. So if you started partway through the tax year ended 5th of April 19, for example, 6 months, unfortunately, the trading profits for that year will be divided by 12 and treated as the monthly average, rather than pro rata on just the monthly the period. So it would count as one tax year. If it was over 3 tax years, that's how they would do it. It would just calculate the total, add the 3 years together and divide by 36 to get the monthly amount. But no, it unfortunately would be 1/12 of that result, the trading profits for that year. It would be your monthly amount.
So if you're obviously running at a loss, are you not eligible to claim for anything? Is that a silly question? Or?
No, it's a good question as well. So it's based on trading profits. So if you've made a loss in your first year, then fortunately you're not eligible for the scheme, or you might be eligible, but you wouldn't get a payout because it'd be calculated as 0. If you've had losses in the previous tax years, it's got to work out the average. If you've had profits in 2 years and a loss in 1, then it would work out the average, but that would count as 0 profits for that year. But yeah, if in your first year you've made a loss, unfortunately, you won't be getting a grant through this scheme.
The government mentioned some timescales on the job retention scheme. I think it was 3 months. How long will this self-employment income support scheme be available for? Do you know?
How long will it be available for? So an initial period of 3 months, and they may extend it if required. So it's similar. It's in line with the job retention scheme.
Is the question? Is the grant subject to income tax?
Yes, it would be subject to income tax, national insurance, and in the normal way, it would be treated as income. It's a grant, so you'd have to disclose that information in your accounts and tax return for the year ended 5th of April 2021. It would also count as income towards tax credits or universal credit. So bear that in mind. Is essentially to replace income that you've lost. So yes, it would be subject to income tax and national insurance in the normal way.
No questions coming through at the minute, Stephen. Just a reminder that we do only have Stephen for another 20 minutes. So if anyone does have any burning questions, there we go, Lorraine, thank you. Stephen, Lorraine says, when this is all over, will the self-employed situation change to become more like employed status? Good question.
Well, to answer your question, there's no guidance available yet to suggest that they are going to change the system for self-employed individuals to be similar to employed. However, at the end of the Chancellor's speech, which he made on the 26th of March, when he announced the scheme, he did make a comment at the end in relation to national insurance contributions. Just a little hint that he suggested potentially there may be plans to look at reviewing the national insurance, the rates that self-employed currently pay lower rates of national insurance than employed individuals. So we could see changes. As I said, at the moment, there's no guidance or nothing set in stone, but it could be something that's under review once this is all over. And
sorry if you did cover it at the beginning, Stephen, but you said that first grants probably won't be paid until June.
Yes.
When is it likely that people will be able to apply?
So HMRC are working hard on the system now. We anticipate seeing the first online claims coming through towards the end of May, with the first payments being made early June, and that's based on the guidance the government have suggested at the moment. It's quite a convoluted process to be able to access all the data in the self-assessment tax returns and put the system together. So it's hopefully by the end of May, early June, first payments be made.
A couple more questions, Stephen. Imogen asks, is it correct that the self-employed do not need to prove they are out of work due to the virus? And also, can they continue working?
Yes. So I'll start with the second part of that question because it kind of answers the first one. So this is a grant, and it's not quite like the job retention scheme, in which if you're furloughed, you can't work. You can continue to work and still be eligible for the grant. However, obviously, you've got to continue to follow the government's guidelines in social distancing, and if you can't work from home, but you can continue to work. So it's not. So you wouldn't have to prove that you can't work. But this scheme is designed for businesses whose profits have been affected. Their businesses have been affected. So there has to be an element of your work has had to slow down, or you've had to stop completely because you're either ill or you've had to isolate because of the restrictions put in place in the government. So hopefully that answers your question.
Ginny asks, what are HMRC using as profits?
So the guidance refers to trading profits. They haven't provided any clarity on exactly what that figure is. However, for the majority of these in fact, in my experience, all of these kinds of claims are based on the adjusted profits for tax. So if you're claiming tax credits or universal credit or things like that, it's the adjusted profits. It's not necessarily going to be the profit that you see on the bottom line in your accounts. It's after adjusting for adding depreciation and then claiming capital allowances, or if you have private use of some of your vehicle or mobile phones, things like that. It will be the adjusted profit figure that goes in your tax calculation, which forms the basis of the profits.
Gillian asks, is there any help for people who have traded and made profits over 50k?
So this scheme you wouldn't be eligible if your profits were over 50k. The government cut it off at that point. The other support available, as I mentioned it a few times, is universal credit. If you haven't already done so, look into claiming universal credit online. There is a link to the Shorts website, to the universal credit government online application. They've been inundated with claims, and you may want to do some research and find there are some peak times, but you do the online claim and you can actually get advance payments of universal credit, which we hear some individuals are getting within a couple of days. So there's universal credit, but also if you have a payment on account for which usually becomes due by the 31st of July 2020, the government are automatically deferring that payment until 31st of January 2021. So if you've saved for that tax payment that's becoming due in July, which is good practice to do so, then you can use that money now to aid your cash flow as we get over the next few months. However, if you're not making that payment on account, of course, your tax payment in January will likely be larger. Again, talk to your accountants and tax advisors. Look at getting your tax returns prepared as early as possible. And that's an automatic deferment, that payment. You don't have to do anything. There's no interest or penalties on that deferment. It's just if you have a direct debit in place to make that payment on account, I'd recommend you cancel it, and that's based on the government guidance as well.
Great. Any final questions for Stephen? Please submit them now. Just while I wait for any final questions coming through, Stephen, is there anything else that you'd like to cover on the scheme? Anything you think?
I think a lot of people have been asking about if they've been recently self-employed, following the tax year ended 5th of April 19, if they would be eligible. But the cut-off is the 5th of April 19. Now that we've completed another tax year to 5th of April 20, there has been some lobbying to try and extend it. There's nothing to report that they will yet. They decided upon a cut-off the 5th of April 19. But those businesses that started during the last tax year, again, this universal credit is probably the best one to look at if you need support now.
So another question coming from Imogen asking if you could confirm that no one needs to contact HMRC. HMRC will automatically get in touch if you qualify. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I recommend you don't contact HMRC, as this could cause delays. Say they're putting the scheme together and the process and the application process. They will review self-assessment records and check your eligibility, and if you meet the criteria, they will contact you directly with an online application. If you don't receive anything by early June, again, just keep in touch with your accountant. If you think you're eligible and you want them to check based on the guidance, ask them to do so. But the guidance is that HMRC will contact everybody directly with an online application. And all I think you will have to do is put your bank details in there. They envisage paying the grant in one lump sum in June directly into your bank account, and that would cover the period of 3 months, March, April and May. Say it's a maximum of £2,500 per month, so that's a potential grant of £7,500 for those that meet that top end criteria there.
And that's paid in one lump sum in June?
One lump sum in June, yeah.
Ginny asks probably an unanswerable question, but you've probably got some inkling. Is the application going to be long-winded?
I mean, they use the word simple online claim when they announced it. So as I say, we don't know what the process is going to be like yet. Some people will be happy to do it themselves, others will be calling upon their accountants and tax advisors to help them with the process.
Bit of a watch this space, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
Julian asks, will the tax be deducted at basic rate before the grant's paid over?
No, there will be no tax deducted at source on the grant. You would have to include that in your accounts and your tax, and disclose it on your tax return for the year ended 5th of April 2021, and pay your tax through self-assessment on that income, along with your other self-employed income.
Another question, do you think it would suggest if one did have the grant, say 7,500, they would be penalised in later tax returns?
I'm not sure I understand the question fully, but I'm just thinking out loud here. If you're referring to the payments on account regime, perhaps. So to be clear, this is support and help. The government want people to get this grant. They won't be penalising people for claiming the grant. What you may be asking is that, I mean, if you want to rephrase the question to confirm, but I wonder if you're mentioning it, referring to the payments on account regime, and if that income is additional in your profits for that year, you can reduce the payments on account for the following year if you think your profits are going to fall. However, this is designed to replace income that you would have received as you continue to trade. So your results should be consistent once you receive the grant. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, if you want to just rephrase it, and I'll try my best.
Shall we wait to see if that has answered Imogen's question? Do we have any final questions for Stephen? Doesn't look like it, Stephen. So yeah, any final comments, words of advice for everyone that's logged in?
Hopefully I've covered as much as I can there. I don't think there's anything else, but yeah, as I say, there's going to be new guidance coming out all the time on these sort of things, and keep looking out for updates. If it's something you think you're eligible for, stay in touch with your accountants and tax advisors throughout this process, and they're there to help you and guide you. So that's all really.
Right, Imogen did confirm that did answer the question.
Oh, good. Thanks.
So I think we are going to leave it there. Obviously, there's not as many people on the call this morning. I'd just like to thank Stephen for giving up his time this morning and joining us. I hope you've all found it useful. I will circulate Stephen's contact email address in a follow-up email. So if you do have any outstanding questions or questions that you want to ask offline, then you can contact Stephen directly. And I will share any useful links and documents that were also mentioned throughout. A reminder that we've just got one more webinar this week. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we're going to revisit all the support packages announced by the government, but pay particular attention to some of the areas that we've not really touched on as yet, such as statutory sick pay, corporation tax, managing cash flow, VAT payment deferrals, and rates relief and cash grants, etc. So just going to try and summarise all the government's support tomorrow in an hour. So got quite a tough ask there. So hopefully you'll join us tomorrow morning. And next week we're focusing on managing cash flow issues, and they will be up on the Chambers events calendar later on today. So thanks again, Stephen, for joining us. Thanks everyone else for tuning in. I hope to see you on future webinars. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.